Rajesh sir, you can
Good.
start.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. I, Rajesh Tarpara, Central Council member of ICSI, I welcoming all of you on this SEBI LODR regulations Triple E 4.0 series planned and conceived by the ICSI and Council. And presently we have with us B. Narasimhan sir, our president sir, for his introductory remarks. Apart from him, we have with us Mr. Rajkumar Das from the DGM from SEBI. Another panelist we have is Mr. Rajendra S, manager from SEBI. And also we have Mr. Apar Patiyat from manager from SEBI. Also we have from stock exchanges, that is from NSE, Mr. Dhaval Shah. And also our own practicing company secretary, CS Makaran Joshi from the Mumbai and PCS side. So today, friends, we are going to discuss about the recent amendment on LODR. Friends, as you are aware that the SEBI has come out with the notification dated 12th December 2024 has amended thoroughly the SEBI LODR listing requirements and disclosure requirement. We are pleased to state that the institute was represented in expert committee whose recommendation led to these kind of the notification, and thanks to lot of our president's efforts for getting this in place. And I must say that we should give a round of applause to his achievement. This amendment has introduced several significant changes for the promotion of good governance and initiative of ease of doing business, and also marks significant milestone for our profession, including introduction of concept of secretarial audit firms for the first time in the LODR regulations. The major highlights for the notification and amendments are enabling integrated filings for periodic reports, statistics, statements, and documents required to be filed by listed entities, streamlining the requirement of newspaper advertisement, and streamlining the process of reclassification of promoters, promoter groups, entities, and for listed entities, and streamlining the disclosure requirement for acquisition by listed company. Without taking much of time, friends, I straight away hand over the sessions to our president, sir, for his introductory remarks, friends.
Good evening, all of you. Thank you, Rajesh. Mr. Rajkumar Das, DGM, CFD, SEBI, one of the well-versed gentlemen, if I can say so, is Rajkumar Das, as well as Rajendran, whom I meet in SEBI, in terms of the changes which has been made. And I think they were hands-on on the job in terms of doing it. Rajendran, he's an engineer by profession, but I tell you, the guy has a tremendous amount of grip on the entire concept of LODR as of now, I can see. We also have Apar. He also has been involved in certain changes which are being made. We have Dhaval from NSE. Mr. Dhaval is from NSE. And of course, our own Makaran Joshi, practicing company secretary. A stalwart in his own sense. Well, friends, it gives me great pleasure to be amongst with you to share my quick thoughts on the topic for the day. Well, I think possibly everything boiled out of one thing which happened on the 20th of December. On the 20th of December, we had the Corporate Governance Award function. And it so happened that I took ill in the morning and I was wheeled into the hospital at 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what hit me. I was terribly weak. And I had a lot of things to share with the members because that would be my last address as the president of the institute in a national program. Unfortunately, that could not happen. But anyway, I thought I will take this opportunity to share some of my few thoughts which I would have otherwise shared on that day had I been all fine. But nevertheless, let me also tell you, at 6 o'clock, I was back in my room in the hotel. And at 7 o'clock, I made a brief appearance in the National Corporate Governance Award function. And I could not speak out much because of the fact that I was very, very weak. But anyway, I'm fine. Absolutely nothing to worry at all. I can tell you that. Well, friends, I think I also thank Yogita Jadhav, General Manager. She has been with us and she has been very keen in getting these evolved. And before I touch upon, I'm not going to touch upon the circular itself, but I need to give the background as to how this thing came about. We have always been clamoring for equality with that of the other profession for a long period of time. In fact, we are no we are no way inferior to the other profession, and we have been claiming so from many a time before. The 12th December circular, if I may say so, is to be written in golden letters. It is one circular which gives a treatment on par with that of a statutory auditor. In fact, for the first time, SEBI formally recognizes the fact that yes, the second auditor should be on par with that of a statutory auditor, and whatever is applicable to the statutory auditor should be mutandis also applicable to that of a second auditor. Having said that, I don't want to touch more on that, but I think it has been a long drawn struggle for all of us. I'm glad it has come through during my tenure, if I may say so, and I'm pretty gleeful. I'm sure the entire community of company secretaries is agog with a lot of stories about how important these changes are. And I'm sure all of you will get a feel of it when Makran goes through it. And the first of it was possibly in the year 2019, when a committee was constituted by Mr. Ranjit Pandey. I was in the council then. I mean, I've been for an eternal period of time been in the council. And 2019, a committee was constituted. Obviously, I was the chairman, and we looked into how we can make the second audit more governance oriented. A lot of suggestions were given. I don't want to touch on them, but a couple of them are also of the nature of the type which has come out in the circular of 2012, dated 2012. Then later on in 2022, SEBI constituted a committee. In fact, I was in the council and they asked me to be the chairman, but better sense prevailed on me. And I requested Mr. Makran Joshi to be chairman. I was the vice chairman, a small group. And we looked at how we can make annual sectoral compliance report more governance oriented. A lot of suggestions again has come through. Some of this has seen the light of the day through the changes which was made in the year 2024, in April 2024. And many more are seeing the light of the day through whatever is happening right now. This committee gave its recommendation as well. But unfortunately, it did not go further. But I can tell you, SEBI constituted about 16 committees sometime in early 2024, and we were represented in each one of them. And one such committee was on ease of doing business and considering the changes to be made in ICDR and LODR. This is the starting point for us. It was headed by Mr. Was a whole-time member,
Mr. Mohanty.
Mohanty. Yes, Mr. Mohanty was the chairman, and we framed a few groups and went through the process of getting the changes to be in place. And we had a fair spread of both company secretaries in practice as well as in employment with us in this group. And in June, the concept paper was put up by SEBI for public comments. In fact, I was really worried that they should not get any adverse comments, but we found that there weren't any adverse comments barring one or two. And they were not very consistent in their thought. And the entire recommendation of the concept paper was mutandis accepted by the committee, and it was placed before SEBI board for its consideration. Finally, the reality dawned on us on a circular which was released by SEBI on 12th of December 2024. It is etched in our memory. I think I can tell you there are a lot of programs being held across the country, both in the city of Mumbai and outside Mumbai, where they're going to discuss threadbare on each one of the recommendation and each one of the changes which has been made through this circular. But nevertheless, while they were talking about how it has come, what are the changes, I thought I will share with you how the changes were actually made. And I can tell you, my friend Makran was quite a bit instrumental in whatever we are seeing in terms of what has happened today. And I think all of us need to thank Makran personally. And I wouldn't mind. I'm making a humble request to each one of you. If you can stand across and applaud Mr. Makran for the wonderful job he has done in getting this in place. Thank you very much. And I request, I'm sure each one of you will do that for the sake of the profession. Well, this is a great comfort and solace for us. Recognition, as I told you, one is on par. The second auditor will be appointed for a period of 5 years. And if it's a firm, it can be appointed for 2 terms of 5 years. Only a peer-reviewed second firm can do an audit of a listed company. Now, these are things which I'm sure is going to get discussed in threadbare now. But I can tell you the reason why the importance is over here. In fact, we have been the second audit since the year 2014 for several companies, and there has been instances when a second auditor wants to make an observation or a qualification or a comment in his report, it is not very palatable to the management. In fact, we have seen the next year he does not remain the second auditor henceforth for whatever reasons. So this was the difficulty which many of our members were faced with, and some of the issues which cropped up and has come to light in the discipline committee. Also, when it was questioned, they said this is the reason. In order to be in business, we had to. So that should not be the case now that you have done it. But simultaneously, I thought I should also say this. There is a huge recognition coming with our way. Alongside recognition, we also have got responsibility to be taken care of. And I think let us not forget, SEBI has for the development of the market and the intermediaries associated with the market and every listed company over there, they have to do everything. But do they have the wherewithal to monitor every activity? No. And that is the reason they assign certain job which can be conveniently done by a professional. In other words, what we are being assigned to do, we are now walking into the shoes of the regulator in terms of doing it for him as it would have been done by them. That is what we are in now. And therefore, it's a huge responsibility given to us. And this recognition will not be there anymore if we do not behave in a responsible manner. It should not be taken that by virtue of this clause which is there, you can take law into your hands. Sorry, I'm saying this because we also have some unruly elements who can do this, which I don't want to. And I'm cautioning you that you have to be extremely careful in what you say, in what you do. Yes, feel free, no doubt about that. But English is such a beautiful language. You can always make modification in those qualification or observation to make it more palatable to the company. And that's what each one of you should practice henceforth. Well, I need to express my sincere gratitude to SEBI. There are a lot of things over there. I mean, I'm sure Makarand will touch each one of those. Plus, we have 3 regulators with us, four of them, in fact, 3 of them from SEBI and 1 from NSE, who will be discussing those issues threadbare. But more importantly, I think I need to express my sincere thanks to SEBI for reposing confidence in us. And I want each one of us to stand up to this occasion and meet the demands which is placed on us to make sure that these kind of recognition will keep coming our way. I always maintain, I've said it before in many a forum, that the Akshay Patra for us is the regulator. And that is where we keep eking out some recognition in the other. And I think that is very important, and we will keep getting it. I'm sure there is a lot of confidence which they have reposed in us, and I'm sure we will be able to execute it. I think for me again, a lot of things have happened during this 1 year. This one of 12th December, plus also having the chairperson as the chief guest at our national convention was a great victory for all of us. I think, and the words and what she said on that day, it keeps ringing in my ears. He said that the market believes in trust. And looking at all of you, I can see why the market is doing well in these days, because you are a very trustworthy lot. And that's what she said. And that is a great confidence. That's a great compliment for each one of us. And I'm sure this was, in fact, I may say so, an icing on the cake. Well, having said this, there were also 2 more circulars which were issued on the 17th of December. They will be giving small recognition for us. I don't want to get into each one of them, but SEBI LODR being one of the most important regulation has also constituted a committee. It is an advisory committee on listing obligation and disclosure. It's, if I may say so, a permanent committee of which I'm also a member. Makarand is also a member. We are working on several fronts. We are working on some more to come your way. If I may say so, अभी मैं बोलूंगा, अभी यही बोलूंगा, ये तो ये तो trailer है, picture अभी बाकी है. There are a lot more things coming up our way, and I'm sure we are trying to do our level best to get whatever we can get from the regulator. I don't want to name each one of them, but there is going to be sea changes in the annual cycle compliance report. The appointment of cycle auditor has been mentioned, but a detailing is going to be done elsewhere. And importantly, they also said only a peer-reviewed firm can do the cycle audit. Now, this is again a plus point, although we have given a leeway that you can do but listed company, then unless you're peer reviewed, you cannot do it. So get your peer review done quickly as possible. We are also trying to get something more. I mean, at this point, I'll keep my fingers crossed. I think they're in advanced stages of being finalized, and more or less, maybe in a month or so from now, we'll have the concept paper of the discussion which has happened, which will be put up for public comments. And I would want each one of you to take time off to go through those and give your views. Be bold enough to express what you would want, and we'll see how it can be taken forward. Thanks once again for this opportunity. I'm sure the words of wisdom will be coming from the other panelists who are there, and we have in Mr. Rajesh Tarpara an eloquent moderator who can take all of you through the next 2 hours of grinding, which he is going to have with all of them. Thank you very much. Wishing you all the very best. Thanks a lot, Makrand, once again to you personally from my side. Thanks to SEBI, and I think I'm blessed to have lovely friends in SEBI. Thanks a ton for being very considerate towards us. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Rajesh. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your passionate speech, which shows the dedication from your side toward our profession and toward the boosting the good corporate governance in the corporates. Friends, marching toward more detailed discussion regarding the topic, that is recent amendment in SEBI LODR. We have with us various panelists, and the panelist is a triangle from SEBI, that is the top regulatory body in India for capital market. We have two panelists, that is one Mr. Rajkumar Das, who is serving as a Deputy General Manager at SEBI and is currently posted in Corporate Finance Department. He is heading the policy division which handle policy matter relating to ICDR and LODR. So give huge round of applause. Welcome you, sir, on this occasion. And friends, again, we have second panelist from SEBI, Rajendran S. He is serving manager at the SEBI and is currently posted in Corporate Finance Department and is currently handling the policy matter including listing obligations and disclosure requirement for listed entities. Prior to joining the SEBI, he was associated with the Directorate of Higher and Technical Education in Government of Pondicherry. So give huge round of applause, sir. I welcome you on behalf of ICSI and on behalf of all the delegates, sir. Third one from the again SEBI, Mr. Apar Patiat. I welcome you, sir. He is serving as a manager at SEBI and currently posted in Corporate Finance Department. He is currently handling policy matters or corporate governance in listed entities. Prior to joining the SEBI, he was associated with Flipkart as a business analyst. Sir, I welcome you on behalf of ICSI. And these are from top regulator. Again, we have from NSE, that is Stock Exchanges, Market Intermediary and Regulators, Mr. Dhaval Shah from NSE. He is currently designated as a senior manager at listing compliances team in the NSE, having approximately 8 years of the post-qualification experience on various listed and unlisted entities. I welcome you, sir, on the board. And to understand the professional perspectives, views, and ideas from the angle of professional as well as practicing side, we have with us Mr. and CS Makrand Joshi, well-known personality as a good speaker for home speaker, our mentor, guider. I welcome you, sir, on the SEBI webinar. And I straight away now request all the panelists to start the discussion one by one. Firstly, I request Rajkumar Das, sir, please give your introductory remarks on the subject.
Thank you, Rajesh ji, and good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank you, ICSI, for organizing this webinar on recent amendments to LODR, which is based on the recommendations of the expert committee. So, before getting into the specifics, I'd like to touch upon the background for the constitution of this expert committee. So, actually, 2024 was a great year for all the corporate sector because for the first time, I think because so far regulator as a SEBI as a regulator has been known as making regulations which are very strict and stringent. For what in 2024 that there was something different to that, and for the first time this year in 2024 we came out with made a committee which is known as expert committee to facilitate ease of doing business and reduce the cost of compliance. So let me touch upon the background on the how basically on the constitution of the expert committee and what all brief on the recommendations of the committee. So the government had made an announcement in 2023-24 whereby the financial regulators were requested to review all the existing regulations to for simplifications. Subsequently, SEBI constituted working groups to recommend for simplifications of various SEBI regulations which are being administered by SEBI and applicable to the regulated entities such as equity and debt listed companies, mutual funds, MIs, stockbrokers, alternative investment funds, research analysts, etc. So thereafter, SEBI had also invited suggestions from various stakeholders towards simplifying, easing, and reducing the cost of compliance for various SEBI regulations, which are applicable for various SEBI regulations which are applicable to the companies and to the other intermediaries or to the MIs. So these comments were considered by the working groups by the relevant working groups. Now coming to the corporate sector, for listed and to be listed companies, SEBI constituted an expert committee to facilitate ease of doing business for ICDR and LODR regulations. The committee was headed by Mr. S.K. Mahanti, former full-time member of SEBI, and had representation from ministry, from industry associations, from stock exchanges, from ICSI, from ICI, proxy advisors, etc. Now, I'd like to give you a perspective on the enormity of committee's work. There are more than 600 suggestions were received for the SEBI ICDR and LODR regulations. Now, in LODR alone, we have received approximately 500 suggestions. All these suggestions were considered and deliberated in the expert committee. The expert committee gave its recommendations, which were then placed in the SEBI website for public consultation, and pursuant to board approval, amendments were carried out in the LODR regulations. The committee had given a wide range of recommendations, which for ease of doing business, which including the aspects relating to filing and disclosures, relaxing certain timelines for some specific compliance requirements, relaxations or exemptions from RPT provisions, introduction of sunset clause for applicability of certain provisions of LODR regulations, and certain requirements were also made optional, like publication of financial results in the newspaper, etc. There are so many and the list goes on, and there are so many recommendations are there. So that is, I think, expert committee had done a great job and actually had they have brought a ease of doing business for the companies and for the professionals which are associated with these companies in making this compliance as per the regulation, make the compliance requirements as per the regulations. So me and my team will be happy to provide any regulatory perspective for all these changes, and I'll happy to take up any questions that the participants may have. I'm thankful to Mr. Narasimhan sir, Mr. Makran Joshi, and Miss Banu, for their for their role in the expert committee, and they have contributed substantially in the expert committee for bringing all these LODR amendments. I think you all people, all the team and all the people who are there should all thank all these people who have actually contributed a lot in bringing this ease of doing business in the regulations. So thank you. I'll request my team to brief upon some of the major recommendations that expert committee had brought out. Now I'm passing it to my team, Rajendran and Apar, to have a brief on some of the major recommendations of the expert committee. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your enlightenment and logic and rationale behind the amendment. Now I request our Rajendran S to please deliver his occasional remark.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Very good evening. First of all, a big thank you to ICSI for organizing this webinar. I mean, this not only helps the professional, but also it helps the regulator, because we get a perspective of what's the thought in the market, what is the feedback, and also it helps us in refining the regulations, refining the existing provisions better. And thank you, Narasimhan sir, for a nice introduction and for kind words. And I would like to say that this was possible because of the team effort. Thank you, ICSI, led by you, and also specifically Banu ma'am, who was there in all the working group meetings and also committee meetings. I will not take more than 3 to 4 minutes, sir. I will just give an overview of what was the regulatory idea or what was the reasoning behind some of the recommendations of the expert committee. My colleague, Mr. Apar, will take you through some of the amendments made with respect to related party transactions and disclosure of material events. Mr. Dhaval Shah from NSE will be taking you through some of the filings which are proposed, like single filing system, integrated filing, system-driven disclosures, and the technical aspects and the procedural aspects of such thing. And Makran sir will touch upon some of the impact to the profession and to the listed entities with respect to the recommendations of the expert committee and the recent amendments to the LODR regulations. So to begin with, the committee's main remit or the main terms of reference was to facilitate ease of doing business for listed entities. And while doing so, it was also conscious of the fact that whatever reforms were introduced in the last few years as far as strengthening corporate governance and listed entities, that should not be diluted in pursuit of ease of doing business. And as Raj sir had briefly touched upon in his introduction, the number of suggestions which we received from public as far as LODR is concerned was very huge. So we had a working group which was headed by Mr. K.K. Mistry. And we had ICSI, we had Makran sir, and we also had representatives from listed entities, proxy advisors, and other professionals in this working group. So after analyzing the suggestions received from the public, so the working group and the committee felt that it is better we bucket different suggestions into a broader heading, and which has come out actually in the final report of the committee, wherein you can see topic or recommendations pertaining to disclosures, pertaining to boards and committees, related party transactions, disclosure of material events, promoter and controlling shareholders related matters, corporate governance related matters, and so on. So when the committee analyzed, it felt that the number of suggestions which were received were on the filings and disclosure aspects, and it was also an area which the committee felt that we can easily review and rationalize the filings and disclosures in order to ease the compliance burden on listed entities, while also not sacrificing on the substantial reforms that have been introduced in corporate governance landscape. So towards that end, the first recommendation of the committee was with respect to allowing entities which are listed on multiple stock exchanges to make a filing on one of the stock exchanges, which will be fetched and disseminated at the other exchange. So in this way, the requirement to do separate filing on the other exchange is being dispensed with. The second aspect which the committee felt was there are a lot of filing requirements under the LODR regulations, broadly event based, and the other one is periodic filings. And when it comes to periodic filings, there were a number of reports with different timelines which had to be filed by a listed entity. So the committee bucketed those filings into two broad categories. One was governance related filing, the other was financial related filing. And then it said that there will be one filing at the end of the quarter with respect to governance, and it will contain all governance related matters. it will be the committee had given a recommendation that such filing should be done within 30 days from the end of the quarter. And the other bucket would be financial related filing, which should be done within 45 days from the end of the quarter. It would contain financial results, related party transaction disclosure, statement of deviation, etc. And the committee also realized that there were certain filings which are there under the LODR and which are required to be done by listed entity, which is not currently required given the advancements in technology and given the progress we have made. For example, disclosure about loss of physical share certificate is something which is not required given that most of the shareholders hold shares in demat form, and then physical transfer is prohibited in the securities market ecosystem except in certain circumstances. So it recommended doing away with such outdated filing requirements. So towards that end, it had given some recommendations. And the next point which the committee realized was there are certain filings which the companies do in the listed space which can be automated. For example, shareholding pattern, since majority of the share or 99% of the shareholding is in demat mode, the data is with the depositories. So if the depositories can provide the data to the exchanges, this can be automated, and there is no requirement for the listed entity to get this data and separately make a disclosure. So that's why it recommended that two specific filings. One is on shareholding pattern, the other one is with respect to credit rating. These can be automated instead of having the obligation on the listed entities. There were some recommendations with respect to curated links and the newspaper advertisements, wherein this was a big request from the listed entities that if we can do away the requirement to publish financial results in the newspapers, and then the committee found a midway, like in no need for publishing detailed financial results, but rather a small advertisement which will contain the link and the QR code where the financials is available. That will be helpful for investors while also reducing the burden on listed entities. As far as the obligations on the board of directors and committees is concerned, the committee was conscious of the fact that it should not dilute the corporate governance requirements, and therefore it had made some recommendations with respect to giving additional time or relaxing the timelines for specific requirements. For example, for committee positions, the recommendation was that the 3 months timeline, which is applicable for filling up director vacancies, that would be applicable even for filling up vacancies in committees. And then wherever there are requirements to obtain statutory approval or regulatory approval, the time taken will be excluded from the timeline specified for taking shareholder approval. And also specific case was with respect to companies which come out of the CARP proceedings under IBC. So there also the recommendation of the expert committee was we need to give additional time for them to put in place the board, the committees, have key managerial personnel, make all the filings specifically with respect to financial results, etc. So a relaxed timeline is being provided for companies coming out of IBC pursuant to the expert committee's recommendations. When it comes to promoters and controlling shareholders, one of the feedback which the committee received was the process of getting out of the promoter or promoter group is difficult, and then the process takes a lot of time, and sometimes the person or entity is stuck being a promoter of the listed entity. So towards that end, it reviewed the process on an end-to-end basis, and then it fixed specific timelines for each event which happens in that reclassification process, so that whatever used to take more than 8 months, the committee has recommended that it can be completed in a little over 5 months timeline. And the requirement to have a stock exchange approval at the end, that has been dispensed with, and it has been substituted by a NOC from the exchanges. The second aspect in promoter and controlling shareholders is that a lot of time listed entities have certain compliance obligations and some compliance requirements. That is the information to ensure that compliance is not actually with the listed entity. It's either with the promoter or it's with the directors or it is with other shareholders. So there has been an amendment in the LODR placing a specific obligation on these entities to provide the necessary information that is required for the listed entity to ensure compliance with all applicable laws. As far as certain other compliance requirements and obligations are concerned, the committee gave recommendation with respect to record date, wherein the gap between the date of intimation and the actual record date, so that is being reduced given the advancements in trading and the shorter settlement timeline which is currently existing in the markets. And there were also certain recommendations relating to analyst or institutional investor meet, which I'm sure Makran sir would be covering in detail. There are also certain set of recommendations which pertain to MCA, wherein changes are required to the Companies Act and the rules. For example, certain things relating to dispensing with dispatch of physical copies of annual reports, doing away with postal ballots, dividend warrants for lesser amounts, and then permanently allowing listed entities to hold electronic meetings. So those things are like subject to acceptance and changes by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. And then the final part of the recommendation of the expert committee was with respect to strengthening the corporate governance. I think this is where the CS fraternity has had a lot of positive impact, and we have also received a lot of positive feedback, and there is a lot of news in the market also with respect to these recommendations. The obvious one is with respect to strengthening the position of compliance officer, wherein the committee recommended that the compliance officer should be a person who is of a higher stature and then who is in a position to effectively discharge the responsibilities and the obligations cast upon the compliance officer under the LODR regulations. Unless we strengthen the position, we cannot expect the compliance officer to effectively discharge his duties and obligations. The next was with respect to secretarial auditor. As Narasimhan sir had said that we have formalized the process for appointment, reappointment and removal of secretarial auditors. This is to ensure that the secretarial audit and the secretarial compliance review, which happens on an annual basis, is the feedback or this that is the report which comes to the regulator on the listed entities compliance with respect to security laws and also other applicable laws. If there is any non-compliance or if there is any lapse or lacuna in compliance, that is being pointed out by the secretarial auditor or the practicing company secretary. So we want the process of appointment and the process of carrying out such an audit to be strengthened, and that's why we have inserted provisions in LODR, even though we are conscious of the fact that Companies Act is silent with respect to appointment and reappointment of secretarial auditors. There have also been some recommendations relating to additional disclosures on the website. So those are in the interest of corporate governance and also investor interest. And there were other drafting changes, I think, which people would be aware by this time. Finally, I would like to thank ICSI and also all the participants. We are happy to take questions. So now I would request my colleague, Mr. Apar Patia, to take you through some of the amendments relating to RPT and material events. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please, sir, continue. Mr. Apar.
Yes. Thank you, Rajesh, sir. Good evening, everyone. I'm thankful to ICSI for providing this opportunity to interact with the CS community on the recent amendments to LODR. I will briefly talk about the amendments to RPT norms and disclosure of material events. There were a lot of suggestions which the working group had received on RPT norms. Out of these, the major recommendations and the major suggestions have been implemented. There was a need felt to bring clarity in the existing provisions, and therefore the exclusions from the definition of RPT, which is given in the Regulation 2 of the LODR, have been elaborated. And we have included corporate actions by subsidiaries also in the exclusions, acceptance of current account and savings account deposits, as well as retail purchases. These have been excluded from the definition of RPT itself. Similarly, we have also exempted some approval requirements for RPTs. The existing exemptions from these approval requirements have been expanded to include payment of dues, fees, or charges which are of statutory nature to the central government or any state government. Further, based on the industry feedback, it was also felt that post facto ratification of RPTs by audit committee should be allowed in case of genuine circumstances. The committee has recommended and the board has approved that a provision similar to the existing provision in the Companies Act with some additional checks and balances regarding to post facto ratification has been now brought out in the LODR. In case of disclosure of material events, in addition to the public suggestions which we received, we also received suggestions from the Industry Standards Forum, which comprises representatives from the 3 industry associations. A major compliance issue which was identified was disclosure of decisions taken in the board meetings within 30 minutes. But due to the price sensitive nature of such decisions, an immediate disclosure is warranted during the trading hours. However, in case the board meeting is closing after the trading hours, a relaxed timeline has been provided for disclosure within 3 hours. Many suggestions were also received on putting a monetary threshold for disclosure of imposition of fines or penalties. Based on the data of disclosures made by the listed companies, the SEBI board decided to put a monetary threshold of rupees 1 lakh for penalties levied by sectoral regulators or enforcement agencies, and rupees 10 lakh for penalties which are levied by other authorities for disclosure within 24 hours. The penalties falling below these thresholds shall be required to be disclosed on a quarterly basis as part of the integrated filing. Another important amendment is with respect to disclosure of acquisitions. Earlier, the acquisitions by a listed company were required to be disclosed for an aggregate shareholding of 5% and any subsequent change of 2% in the target company. You may also recall that in the last year, in June, LODR was amended, and any acquisition whose value exceeds the materiality threshold was also required to be disclosed. Now that would now include acquisition of any small percentage shareholding in a large company, let's say like Reliance, where the acquisition percentage would be low, say 1%, but the amount or the cost of acquisition would be huge. Now coming to the other extreme, there may be scenarios where the cost of acquisition would be very low, but the percentage shareholding acquired would be high. For example, when acquiring stake in a startup company. So such acquisitions may not be material for disclosure unless a target company becomes an associate of the listed company. So hence the committee recommended that the threshold for the disclosure of acquisitions should be increased to aggregate shareholding of 20% and any subsequent change of 5%. However, under the SEBI takeover regulations, the disclosure is required if the acquisition is 5% and any subsequent change of 2% in a listed company. So in order to bring parity, if such similar acquisitions in an unlisted company would now be required to be disclosed on a quarterly basis as part of the integrated filing. That's it from my side. Thank you once again for this opportunity.
Thank you all the three panelists from the SEBI. Sir, when Mr. Rajendran said that the secretarial compliance officer and secretarial auditor should be strengthened. And sir, I, on behalf of ICSI and on behalf of all my members, assure you that we will leave no stone unturned toward discharging our liability duties toward the making good governance in a true sense. And now I request Mr. Dhaval Shah to speak about the occasional speech and relevant speech from NSC.
Thank you, Rajesh sir. I'll first of all thank you ICSI for giving us an opportunity to present our view towards the LODR and the technicality side for that matter. And I would also like to thank SEBI officials and Makaran sir for bringing out the amendment which was definitely required for ease of compliance for the listed entities. So I'll just touch upon a few points. I'll just share a slide which I think would be useful for everyone. Just give me a minute. I hope the slide is visible to everyone.
Yes, visible.
Yeah, okay.
Correct,
so,
correct.
So firstly, we'll touch upon the integrated filing. So the SEBI consultation paper had a summary of how the integrated filing would look like. So this is basically a summary of the same which has been extracted from the said consultation paper. So as rightly said by Rajendra sir and Apar sir, the filings of the integrated one has been divided into two aspects, which is governance and the financials one. So basically, all the listed entities had now and then had to make a periodic compliance, say for 21 days, for 30 days, and etc. So to curb that, all the filings are made into and bifurcated into two things, which is one is governance and one second is the financials. So what filings are been getting covered in the governance? You can see here is the 13.3, which is investor complaints, the corporate governance report. These are the two major filings for the governance part. However, the filings related to Regulation 13, which is duplicate share certificate, the 4973 certificates from the RTE and the PCS, which are rightly said by Rajendra sir, is getting covered in the other and monitoring since the depositories and the RTAs are the MIs of the SEBIs. these are getting covered in their compliances, that how the compliance has been monitored related to that. So hence this is not required, and hence this has been deleted or omitted, you can say, from the current disclosures. Going ahead with the acquisition, when rightly the Apar sir rightly said that the more than the acquisition of more than 5% but less than 2%, but less than 20%, and any changes in the 2% of that holding will be covered under the integrated filing, which is a quarterly filing. Moving ahead, any penalties under subpara 20 of para I part A of Schedule 3, which is not exceeding the limits which is mentioned in the current amendment, which will form part of the integrated filing, and the updates on the ongoing tax litigation. So here it was divided into normal litigations and the tax litigations. So the normal litigations will fall under the disclosures as per the requirement, and the tax litigation and the updates on the same will be getting covered into the quarterly filings. So the lastly we'll see the disclosures related to the loans and guarantees and comfort letters in the securities, which is the half yearly filing. Also in the annual filing for the integrated and the governance part, the affirmation related to the requirements of the AGM also has been covered. So these are the some of the filings which are getting covered in the governance part. Now we'll move to the financials part. So financials, earlier we used to, as a companies, they used to file the regulation 33 financial results, post that the RPTs and SOD if it's required. So to just strengthen that, and many of time it happens that the companies do file their financial results, but sometimes they left feeling they leave the RPT filing because maybe the compliance officer was not aware about it, or maybe they will file it after a couple of days, or maybe so, or they may find some technical difficulties for filing it. However, to curb that, the only unified filing has been integrated into the financials part, which will cover the financial result, it will cover the RPT filing and also the SOD filing. Further, including the defaults part. Earlier the defaults part were in the C1 C2 format as per SEBI circular November 21 2019 was included. Since it is related to the financials part, this has been specifically included in this financials related integrated filing. So this were the two divisions which were made into the integrated filing. And third aspect is the SDD filing. So currently we can see that regulation 29 of SAST and insider trading regulations, wherein the system driven disclosures are already in place. So as rightly said by Rajendran sir, that the details are already available with the MIs, which is the depositories and the credit rating agencies in matter of the credit rating. So anyways, the details are already there with them. And having said that, since the data can be available to the exchanges, the same can be directly reflected on the exchanges website. So this was a welcoming step wherein the not the filings burden and the compliance burden, but the time taken by the listed entities will get also reduced for the filings related matter, and basically more the governance part could be touched upon. So this was one matter related to the integrated filing. Now we'll move on to the single filing system. This was a very welcoming step, and majority. So from the exchanges perspective, we have received call from many of the companies when the circulars were issued on that part, that they were happy on that because this is a time-taking activities by the listed entities. Like this is not getting them an additional benefit of filing on both the exchanges, investing their time on both the exchanges. Moreover, when there is a filing related to the regulation 33 and etc. outcome of board meeting within 30 minutes, we all would have realized that the our blood pressure before that and after that would have a very differentiate part in that. So because everyone, like the CFO, CEO, MD, and everyone would be behind us that upload hua ke nahi hua, upload hua ke nahi hua. Because it is very critical for the market to know about the financials of the company before the board members or the management have a call with the analysts and investors and everyone. So this was a very welcoming step, and as an exchanges also, we have started implementing it module by module. So you can see the API which has been implemented as of now. From September, it was started, say, investor grievances, then it came to corporate governance, then it came to reconciliation of share capital audit, and yesterday itself only both the exchanges have issued a circular related to the API filing the voting results. So, and the upcoming modules related to the API filings are the RPT, the annual settled compliance report, and the SOD. Going forward, there is a target of moving regulation 30 filings also in the API, but that the timings will be decided so on and so forth. It would this graph will or the image will be very easy to see that how the filings are being flowed from one exchange to another. But I would definitely tell you it was not an easy task, because anything which is there currently, which is long lasting, wherein the companies were making filings in the exchanges platform, say BSEs and NSEs, uh, making changes in the current filing system was a difficult task, because changes in their coding, changes in their process, getting acknowledgement to the each of the listed entities. So it was a challenging task, but however, both the exchanges have figured it out the way, and the changes has been implemented, and we see filings from the companies related to the periodic compliances as of now, and now the voting results also have been included. So that was one of the welcoming step by SEBI, wherein the single filing system was appreciated by many of the listed entities. Moving ahead with the curated links. So this was the compliance under regulation 46 and other schedules, wherein the large chunks of the companies would face a difficulties in maintaining their website, and also the cost related to that. However, for the large size of companies, this won't be an issue, because they would have their resources, they would have the team to maintain that website. But for a small and medium sized companies, maintaining their website definitely is a cost which is there to it, and even they have to see that and maintain that on day-to-day basis, as and when they file their disclosures to the stock exchanges. So this was a great initiative to we can say, which comes into the header of ease of doing compliance and cost saving for the small and medium sized companies, wherein the filings which are made by the listed entities and which are already there in the public domain, that can be used as a integrated or a curated links by the listed entities, and these are the links which can be used by the listed entities on their websites, when the curated links of the exchanges can be placed there, and on clicking of that, the investors or the person who is looking onto the stock exchanges website, or maybe the listed entities website, can directly go to that page to show to see what are the filings which are available related to that event. Moving ahead with, I think Rajendran sir has almost covered the reclassification process, the process how it has been changed. I'll just like to show you a summary of it, or you can say a flow chart of it, wherein earlier it used to happen that the promoters would have requested the listed entities to reclassify themselves. It goes to board, then board used to go to the shareholders, and then they used to come to the stock exchanges for the application. It took time related to that, and there's no specific process in that, and the timeline which Rajendran said clearly said, there's no specific timelines to it. Now this has been framed into a process wherein both the listed entities and the stock exchanges are bound to comply with the timelines, or else there is a fine which is imposed, which will be imposed as per the SEBI circulars, SOP circulars. So starting by that, the promoters who are seeking reclassification will come to the board at the listed entities and place a request, having a rationalizing of it, why they want to reclassify themselves. And the board has to conduct their board meeting. So there are two views of it. Like two things of it. The board meeting, the upcoming board meeting, or the board meeting to be conducted within 2 months, whichever is earlier, wherein this request would be placed to the board. So once the board approves that the disclosure is made to the stock exchanges, it will go to the stock exchanges for the NOC. Earlier, it used to file an application with the stock exchanges. Now there is a concept of the NOC which has come to place, which is to be placed within 5 days once the board approves that request. Post that, it is obligation upon the stock exchanges also to confirm that or provide an NOC to the listed entities within 30 days of that request. We need to also mention that the communication between the stock exchanges and the listed entities for resolution of the queries, or the data which is requested by the stock exchanges and etc., would not be counted in the days of 30 days. Moving ahead, then the listed entities will come to the shareholders and say that we have received an NOC from the stock exchanges, and now we want to request for the shareholders for the reclassification of the so and so promoters. The shareholders once approve it, the listed entities has to intimate that to the stock exchange within 5 days. So here there would be two filings maybe. One is the voting results where definitely company will file, which is as per the regulation 44, and one is the intimation, normal intimation as a Reg 30 intimation, or a Reg 31 you can say an intimation stating that the shareholders have approved the reclassification and the companies have given effect to it, will also has to be intimated within 5 days of the shareholders approval. So this was the part related to the stock exchanges, and just like to touch upon this point on how the exchanges are working ahead to have the system in place so as to ease the compliances for the listed entities is the one filing system which we already talked about. There is a XBRL concept which is currently going on. The companies definitely would have complaints on that part, that currently they are filing two compliances for Reg 30, which is the PDF one and the XBRL one. But be rest assured, we are on it, and we would be coming ahead with the circulars and the amendments, or the maybe the circular or the amendments, wherein the filings for the PDF would be closed, wherein the XBRLs are available. So we are on it. We are working on with the SEBI team related to that part. Next is the extensive use of the web crawlers and regulators and social medias. So you would be aware about the regulation 3011 of the rumor verification, and there are many cases wherein the regulators are giving in orders, but however the companies are not complying with that orders. So just to inform you that even the stock exchanges are monitoring that websites there wherein the companies are not giving the disclosures, and definitely action has been taken against them. The point which we already discussed related to the system-driven disclosures of shareholding pattern and credit rating, the exchanges are working on that part, and soon this will be out for the companies. Alerts coming out from the data analytics, AI and ML are the new tech-driven things which exchanges are using so as to monitor what is happening in the listed companies era and the market area. So these are a few of the things which exchanges are working on it. I thank you ICSI team for providing us an opportunity. I'll now ask Mr. Rajesh sir to take this upon.
Thank you, Dhaval bhai. I am happy to that all the crux and point being discussed is very useful in our day-to-day life as a compliance officer. And now, sir, floor is open for us as a CS. And now I request Makarand Joshi sir to enlighten and share his experience, and then we will go for question answer.
Thanks, Rajesh. Thanks, Narasimhan sir, for his wonderful opening remark. As a leader, we always look up to him. Thanks, Raj. Thanks, Rajendran. Thanks, Safar. Thanks, Dhaval. You already shared everything. So, but just few points which I thought that our fellow members should keep in mind when they are looking at this amendment. I'm sure this is a little 12-15 days old amendment now. So everybody has gone through that amendment, and many questions have started pouring in. A few things with respect to APAR very clearly highlighted. Certain transactions are exempted from related party transaction treatment. So it neither requires audit approval, nor requires shareholder approval, nor require disclosure. In that, one caution I wanted to keep to all our members is that if you have, there is an exemption now that if you have bank as your related party, and if you have your current account and saving account is not considered as a related party transaction. But remember one thing, that if you have saving account or a current account, and if you have auto sweep facility which creates fixed deposits, then although it may not require audit committee approval, but it will require disclosure. And therefore we have to be mindful about this particular thing. One major change which SEBI was kind enough to accept was with respect to retail transactions, which are getting exempted, and we have to be careful about claiming this exemption. Retail transaction, there is a clear meaning that it is not for business consumption, it is for self-consumption. And therefore, any transaction anybody tries to fit in, there is no question of ordinary cost arm's length here. The expectation is that transaction should be of a retail nature. That means you should be consuming from that related party material, or related party should be consuming from you for its self-consumption and not for commercial use. So power consumed by a director or a telephone used by a director for personal use is a retail, but a telephone or a director for a company is not a retail. You can, so these kind of finer lines which we have to remember when we are complying with these provisions. I thought I should highlight few more things with respect to related party transaction. Is a big breather for entire compliance fraternity that we have seen in earlier avatars of amendments of related party transaction. The definition of related party kept expanding. Earlier it was 276, then Ind AS also got added, then promoter group also got added, then subsidiary level related parties also got added. But the obligation to disclose conflict of interest was only on the director under section under Companies Act, and there was no other obligation on any promoter group, KMP. None of them were obligated to make a disclosure, and therefore for a compliance officer it was always a trouble as to how do I identify that. Now fortunately this amendment has mandated all these people to make disclosure, whatever disclosure, whether it is with respect to identification for the purpose of promoter group for shareholding pattern, whether it is for disclosure under regulation 30, or whether it is for related party transaction compliance purposes, whatever disclosures are required, they are mandated to do that. Many times when our compliance people are dealing with entities which are overseas, which are foreign entities, many times they say that we have a what you call privacy law, and therefore we are not supposed to disclose. Now you can cite this particular provision and tell them that this is the obligation under Indian law, and therefore you will have to make a disclosure. So this can be definitely useful for all the compliance officers. Another major relaxation is with respect to ratification. Earlier, SEBI didn't allow ratification, in the sense audit committee has to have a prior approval. Any ratification will have to report, it is non-compliance and all of that. Now the ratification is allowed, but remember, ratification in Companies Act and ratification in SEBI regulation is still, there is a little difference with respect to monetary limit. Monetary limit 1 crore in both the places, but in Companies Act it is 1 crore per transaction, whereas it is consolidated number, and therefore this is a little strict. It's not exactly at par with Companies Act, but definitely one notch in a relaxed form than what it was. So we have to be careful about claiming this particular relaxation which is coming with respect to ratification. Another trouble which many conglomerates used to face is that when they have subsidiaries, and on the subsidiaries they have to have board member, they used to depute some of their senior management as the board member of the subsidiaries, and of course other compliances at a subsidiary. Now whatever remuneration was paid by the holding listed company to those SMPs will also require compliance for the scenario earlier, will require disclosure, will require audit committee approval and all of that. Now expert committee deliberated this point, and there was a consensus that with respect to senior management, KP and director, remuneration is anyway approved by nomination and remuneration committee, and therefore it will not require approval of audit committee, and it will not even be required. It will not require a disclosure to stock exchange, and therefore many senior management people who were very conscious about salaries getting disclosed on a stock exchange as a related party transaction, there is a relaxation for them definitely. But remember one thing, again, one caution: this relaxation has been extended only up to senior management and not to every employee. Other employees, if there are transactions who happens to be covered under related party transaction, they are not going through NRC, and therefore it will have to go through audit committee, and it will have to abide by disclosure of related party transactions to stock exchange, which Dhaval was narrating. So we have to be mindful about this, and I also want to caution that when you are a company secretary, till the time Companies Act also gets aligned with LODR relaxation, some of these exemptions you may have to still comply with audit committee compliances under section 177 of the Companies Act. I'm not going into each and every line by line, but a caution that we have to comply with both the laws, and whatever is stricter we have to comply. So we have to be mindful about this particular thing. Many companies enter into deputation arrangement with the other related parties, and then there is a charging back. For example, a person employed on my payroll and I depute it to some other group company. Now for that, I will charge to that group company. Now this kind of deputation charges which a company is charging to each other, this is not going to get exempted. If you are SAP on your payroll listed, holding listed company, and he happens to be a director on the subsidiary, only that will get covered under the exemption. So be careful about these particular aspects is one thing which I thought I will tell you. With respect to disclosure under Regulation 30, some cautions again with respect to these disclosures. Remember that Regulation 30 and UPSI Fair Disclosure Code are twins. So two sides of the coin. And whenever it is UPSI, the requirement under Fair Disclosure Code is prompt. And so even if we have 24 hours, 12 hours, even if we have 72 hours now with SDD entering into, we have to remember that if it is the UPSI which reach to credible and concrete, or then you have to make a prompt disclosure. So one caution again to all the members that we have to be sure that this is complied with. With respect to tax demands, tax claims, and tax penalties, there was a lot of discussion, and initial thought was that entire tax penalty demand claim, everything will club in para B, and it will fall under materiality threshold, and if it is material, then it will trigger a disclosure. But then there, in consultation process, a lot of comments were received, and the revised avatar as of now is coming up is any penalty levied by any regulator. If it is a sectoral regulator, then up to 1 lakh rupees, but a non-sectoral regulator, 10 lakh rupees. And so even if it is a tax penalty, it will fall under this is what is coming out as a final gazette notification. As far as claims are concerned, claims of tax or claims of any other party, there is a different treatment given under the new framework. And as far as claims from tax departments are concerned, there is no application of any subjectivity. And if it is beyond the threshold, then it has to be disclosed within 24 hours. But if those claims are from other than tax, then we have 72 hours window to make an assessment as to whether it is, in company's view, whether there is a likelihood of this falling onto and whether it is material. Then again, as per the materiality threshold prescribed under Regulation 30. So this part we have to be careful about when it comes to disclosure. With respect to investors and analyst meet, again, one big change which is coming up now is that we have to upload audio recording within 24 hours, but video recording we get 48 hours. But it's not to be uploaded on the website of a stock exchange. It is on the website of the company. This is one major change. What is going to get uploaded, hosted on the stock exchange is one, with respect to your scheduled meetings, the details of the scheduled meetings, presentation before the meeting starts, and then the transcript of that video, of that investor call which you have, that you have to upload on a stock exchange site, that we have to be mindful about, and we have to do this. With respect to many recommendations were received with respect to how many years we have to hold it on our website, because it consumes a lot of space, and therefore SEBI has given some relaxation on those audio visual recordings to be preserved on the website of the company. However, it will require prior approval of board of director to get into that particular thing, to take that relaxation. Coming to our company secretary fraternity and the changes about it, the biggest change which many practicing members, Rajendran and Raj and Apar and Dhaval, many of them had kept this as their social media page. Many of them had put this as their, what you call as, status. That secretarial auditor now is at par with statutory auditor. As far as the appointment is concerned, it will be approved not only by the board but also by the shareholders, and the removal will also go to the shareholders. So this is one major change, and applaud to all the efforts which made by our President Narasimhan sir with respect to that. He has already discussed about it. Some finer points which I want to add here is, the the position is given to us, but we have to owe that position, and we have to really do something, do our best to owe that position so that it sustains and it becomes a sustainable change. One thing which we have to remember now is a provision similar to Section 144 of the Companies Act. SEBI will notify in a circular whereby certain services secretarial auditor will not be able to render to the listed company at all, ever, as far as he is secretarial auditor, and other other services which are not prohibited, you can render provided your board approves those particular, and those will be typically this draft notification circular, which was already available at a public domain for consultation when it was released for consultation. It will be released soon, but it is understood that we cannot be rendering anything which is obviously falling under internal audit domain. We cannot be rendering anything which is kind of a outsourced services to anyone. We cannot be helping them to do whatever they are supposed to do. The word management services, which appears in 144, probably it will get figured in that SEBI circular also. And management services means anything which management is supposed to do, we cannot be rendering those services. If you are doing a SBEB certificate, if you are doing ASCR certificate, if you are doing assurance under BRSR, these are the services which management is not supposed to do, and therefore there is no conflict of interest. Or even if you have to certify certain e-forms for the subsidiaries who do not have company secretary, these are the services which management cannot do on their own, and they have to go to professional for attestation services. So that is allowed, but otherwise will not be allowed. All of this entire framework of coming from 24A of LODR will become effective from 1st April 2025, and therefore the within audience, if you have someone or some of you are attending, and if your company is planning for an IPO, then ensure that secretarial auditor appointment is done by your company before 31st of March 2025, because whatever appointments are done before 31st March 2025 will happen via board. But any appointment for the financial year starting from 1st April 2025 will be abided or will be regulated under this framework and will require shareholder approval and all of that. So again, we have 5 years. So there is an assurance of tenure, like Raj and Rajendran had narrated that there is an assurance of tenure. But within the period, the shareholders can always remove the secretarial auditor if they do not find it appropriate. One point with respect to secretarial audit is secretarial audit under 24A is mandatory for listed company and its material subsidiaries which are unlisted. Again, because if it is the material subsidiary but listed, it will be regulated separately. Material subsidiary which is unlisted, there you require a peer-reviewed secretarial auditor, but with respect to this shareholder approval and all of the other framework which was introduced will not be applicable to them unless MCA goes on to the same path subsequently in near future. If they adopt that, then definitely we'll have to follow that particular thing. One more important point is that fees paid to secretarial auditor will be disclosed now when this transaction is going to the shareholder as a part of annual report disclosure even. So obviously the fee, if it is not commensurate, then stakeholders may raise some questions with respect to the ability of the secretarial auditor. So we have to be mindful about these things. So these were some major changes with respect to practicing company secretary. Again, with respect to compliance officers of a listed company, there is a big change. Rajendran has already highlighted about it. One is that he has to be in whole-time employment. 203 does not require you to be in employment. 203 only says whole time, and therefore deputation arrangements here onwards will not work. He has to be in whole-time employment, and he has to be a KMP. That means there are certain companies where company secretary under 203 and compliance officer for LODR is different. But even if that situation is there, then this compliance officer will be a key managerial personnel under Companies Act, because KMP definition under LODR is referring us to KMP definition of a Companies Act, and therefore he will be KMP, and therefore good practice will be, if you have such scenario, appoint him as a KMP anyway, and even better you file a form under MCA, because under Companies Act, if he's getting appointed as a KMP. So compliance officer is by default a KMP. Compliance officer by default has to be full-time in employment of the company, and compliance officer has to be one level below the board of director. Now this is a big position, and it is like a chief secretary to state, or any secretary to government, whatever position, that kind of positioning is being recognized by the regulator. Rajendran has already highlighted this particular portion in his remark, and therefore this is one major change for our professional friends who are on employment side. Last point which I will touch upon is with respect to many changes which this committee has recommended to MCA to carry out in their framework. And overall, there is a recommendation that since everything is going e-notice, so can we dispense with annual report? Can we dispense with physical meeting? Can we dispense with postal ballot requirement? Can we reduce the timeline of notice periods of the meetings and postal ballots? Because if it is a 30-day or sometimes 40 days notice, then shareholders may forget with respect to when is the voting getting started. And therefore, now in the digitized world, this 30 days, 20 days notice period, whether still it is relevant, that kind of recommendation, under this committee's recommendation, SEBI has made to MCA. And some smaller shareholders' dividend, if their entitlement is less than 10 rupees, and if their banking details are not available. Now, imagine on one side we have a scenario where everything is going compulsory demat, you cannot transfer physically, and so many restrictions with respect to physical holding. Therefore, putting your bank detail into your depository system should not be that difficult for a shareholder. And those smaller, tiny shareholders, if there is a dividend payout less than ₹10, and if the banking details are not available, there is a recommendation made to MCA that do you want to relook at the issue of the dividend payment via check? Because if you have to draw a check and send it by courier, you spend maybe equal amount or sometimes maybe more amount than the dividend amount to the courier charges or postal services or any other charges. So these kind of recommendations have already happened. MCA, I'm told by Banu that they were also looking at it very positively with respect to those changes. So these are some major changes and some fine points from my side, Rajesh, and now you can take it forward.
Hello. Yes. So is it good to go for question answer?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. I have a few questions from the attendees. As regard to the major questions are relating to the secretarial audit and appointment related. Whether the term secretarial audit has been defined anywhere in the law, the general question.
Rajesh, along with question, if you can also spell out to whom you are asking this question, that will be.
Oh, so this is regarding secretarial audit and their appointment related questions. So okay. I think Makaran Joshi would be you are the proper person, sir. So whether the term secretarial audit has been defined anywhere in the law?
The secretarial audit is not defined, but the format is prescribed. And in earlier SEBI circular of 2019, which emanated out of Kotak committee, when secretarial audit reference and annual secretarial compliance report reference came in that I think 8 February 2019 circular, the format prescribed is MR3, and therefore though what is secretarial audit is not prescribed, but what secretarial auditor has to report is prescribed, and therefore whatever is required to do that reporting, that is regulated under ICAI's auditing standards and also guidance note issued by ICSI on secretarial audit. So after complying with those, then secretarial audit can be performed. Yes, Rajesh.
Okay. So conducting the audit to report MR3 is equivalent to secretarial audit, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So my next question, is it necessary that secretarial auditor should be appointed for a period of 5 years, which is in the line with the statutory auditor? Or second question to sub question, whether we can appoint for a lesser period or not?
So 24A1B mandates that on the basis of recommendation, listed company shall appoint, and therefore it is not may. It is shall appoint individual as a secretarial auditor for a term of a 5 year, and there they have said that a term cannot be more than 1 term, and therefore it is shall therefore mandatory, and 1 term of 5 consecutive years is also mandatory. So there is an assurance of term and therefore empowerment to do his role independently. Yes,
so you mean we cannot appoint for lesser period, right?
Yeah.
Than the 5 year. The term is fixed.
Statutory auditor, that's applicable. So that was the idea of the committee also, and the amendment also says that one term of 5 consecutive years. So it should be 5 consecutive years.
Great.
I mean, I also want to pitch in. I mean, it's basically on par with that of a statutory auditor, whose appointment again is a mandatory period of 5 years. Therefore, I think it is mutandis applicable, and therefore the appointment will be for a period of 5 years.
Right, sir.
Next question, maybe can be answered by any regulatories also. Is the appointment of secretarial auditor in a company other than listed and its material subsidiary must be done in AGM?
Rajendran, you want to respond?
That will be covered under these provisions. I think even material subsidiary, if it's unlisted, I don't think the LODR will cover, except to the limited extent, as Makran sir pointed out, he should be a peer-reviewed company secretary, even the one who is taking secretarial audit of material unlisted subsidiary. Otherwise, appointment, removal, etc., will be applicable only to the parent-listed company.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anybody want to add something on this? Makranji, is it clear?
Absolutely,
yeah, it's absolutely clear, Rajesh. I mean, I think Rajendran has hit the nail on the head. There's no problem at all.
Thank you, sir. Will it be correct that removal of secretarial auditor by an ordinary resolution as per LODR, is it enough? Okay, whether it is special resolution is required?
As the law matures, probably it may come up to. This is one thing which is little deviation from statutory auditor. But as the law matures, probably SEBI may come out with some change to say that it is special. Yes, Nasim.
Yeah, Magna, one more point. I mean, basically, a similar recommendation has also already been made with the MCA. And I think we look forward to what are the changes which are likely to happen in the Companies Act in terms of what they want to do. I mean, I think when we already made the changes in the regulations over here, I'm sure MCA will also look at similar changes to be made in the Act itself. And by virtue of it, I think automatically the resolution and the form in which the appointment has to be done will also get prescribed over there. At this point in time, SEBI cannot talk about AD1, etc. I think that will be we await the call, clarion call, if I may say so, from the MCA on this particular point.
So, sir, to add what Mr. Narasimhan and Mr. Makran has told, so going by the language, recently it is only the ordinary resolution right now. So going forward, we'll see whether it requires any other further changes.
Yeah, that's right, sir.
Sir, my sub-question, which have already been answered by you, but for the sake of more clarity, the particular e-form, will the MCA will bring the ADT1 or not? But it is already answered. But as present, without any prescribed form, is it okay to file MGT 14? Makranji.
So since these meetings will be online, and therefore this current framework of MCA, which talks about e-voting and e-general meeting, that there is the prescription that for all the transactions carried out, you have to file MGT 14. So even if it is not special resolution, but still MGT 14 will get filed because of this framework.
Correct. Yes, I think that's a fair summation of what is required to be done.
Thank you. Thank you for more clarity. As regard to the peer review, sir, if the firm is peer reviewed, PCS firm is peer reviewed, but individual partner may not be the peer review. Is it okay?
Can I
He
pitch in?
has
I
to
mean, basically, let me tell you, peer review
Hmm.
when you do for the firm, all the partners are automatically covered. It's not an individual partner being taken up for peer review. But if a certain partner joins after the firm is peer reviewed, then he is not eligible to come within the ambit of peer reviewed partner. That is the only requirement.
So the
The
firm
firm
will
is
have
peer
to,
reviewed. All the partners at that point in time automatically are covered as peer reviewed. If a partner comes in later and the firm is peer reviewed, but he comes in later, then it is better if he gets himself peer reviewed in an independent capacity and joins as a partner, then there should not be a problem.
like Narasimhan said, I have highlighted ICSI guidance note also says the same thing, that once the new partner gets added, then
Yes, sir.
firm can get themselves, will have to get themselves re-reviewed by a peer.
Okay, got it. So I got it clearly. Now, so there are few questions regarding one point, that is rendering of the services which are not to be rendered by secretarial auditor. So which are these services? The more 2-3 questions in different language are there. Whether the secretarial auditor should not provide as per latest amendment.
That is in the offing. I think Makarand has already covered. Anyway, Makarand, please go ahead.
So these are the same thing which I was narrating. Whatever management has expected to do, drafting resolutions or making e-form or stock exchange submissions or framing policies. These are the things which a management is expected to do, and which practicing company secretary who is secretarial auditor will not be able to render these services. But whatever are attestation services broadly will fall under allowed category, but will require approval for sure. So conflict of interest is sum and substance. This draft circular was already available at public domain. SEBI may come out with the final one, but this will be the framework around which this circular will come. Right, Rajendra and Raj?
Correct.
Yeah. Yes.
It will be on the lines of section 144 with specific focus on services which a secretarial auditor shouldn't be giving. For example, compliance management or record keeping for compliance purposes or systems and processes for compliance. So we had given the indicative list of services in the expert committee report. So on the basis of that, SEBI will soon come out with a circular. That's right.
So, okay. Now, next question is, please elaborate the meaning of not more than one level below the board, though it is already covered, used in the appointment of compliance officer. How to comply with this provision? What exactly is it contemplated here that can be explained with an example, please? Makarand sir.
No, I think Raj and Rajendran can respond. I think it's better that,
anybody.
yeah.
So basically, I will take up this question, and Rajendran, if you want to add something, you can pitch in. So I'll say that one level below the board of director means any person who is reporting to a MD or a full-time director. Then I think and is a KMP. The persons will be a full-time employee and he is designated as a KMP and reporting to a MD or a full-time director. That
Or
we
CEO.
consider. CEOs are sometimes is not a part of the board. So I don't know, in case of CEO, it may be. So the company has to take a call. In case of CEO, they may directly report to whole-time director. Because CEO, I think in some companies, is not a part of the board of director. So they may be below the board of director.
Level.
Invariably.
So in that case, depending upon the company structure, so basically it says that it will be there in same line with the KMP. They will be placed in the same status, same position as a KMP, and they'll be reporting directly to MD or board of directors or whole-time directors, as the case may be.
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir. In an ideal, we have the board at the top and then followed by the KMPs, all the CXOs, CFO, Chief Financial Officer, technology,
CTO.
risk officer. And we want the compliance officer to be at that position so that whatever is the responsibility assigned under the regulations and also under other laws, so he is able to effectively discharge his responsibility, and he is of a person of higher stature. And by saying that he should not be more than one level below, directors, the regulation indirectly says that the reporting has to be to a board member. So ideally to the MD or to a whole-time director. So that is the a reporting structure that has to be followed by listed entities.
Perfect.
To be more detailed, whole-time director includes executive director also, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, who's on the board?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. And coming to the next questions, as the regulation 34 sub-regulation 2 has been deleted. Now, which prescribed about the time limit of sending annual report to the security holder. Now, is there any other provision which prescribes same timeline for sending annual return reports?
I think it will be flowing from company section 101 and 102 will be applicable. Notice of the meeting and then documents to be annexed. So notice of the AGM will also include the reports which has to be placed, one of which is board report or called as annual report. So the companies have to follow the timeline prescribed in the Companies Act, and that is the reasoning also given by the expert committee in its report.
Okay.
In other
got
words,
it.
the existing system will follow based on the recommendation, based on the circulars to be issued by MCA from time to time. That's simple as that. Correct.
Okay, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
this amendment has given a way for MCA to reduce the number of days notice period, and probably then, so that again amendment in LODR will not be required. So this is the facility which this framework has provided.
Correct. Correct.
Sir, coming to the another question regarding the publication of result in newspaper. Now, there is two mandatory requirement as per the questions. One, only QR code or QR code along with the extract as per the existing format. Now, can the publication of extract as per the own choice is possible because the format has already been deleted because of deletion of the relevant rules?
In my view, it will not be possible. You have to give QR code and full text, else give only QR code. Selective disclosure can be a violation of principles, disclosure principles, and we have to be mindful about this, that some selective turnover is gone up 500 times, 200 times, and the profit has dipped. And I will say that only the turnover has gone up and give QR code. That kind of advertisements will be in violation of principles, regulation 4 of LODR. Rajendran and Raj, you may add on this.
Yeah, in toto they have to give, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So the changes which we have done to regulation 47, which talks about newspaper advertisement, is that they have an option to give the QR code and the web link where the full financial results is available. In addition to this, they may use the format which we are given for newspaper advertisement of financial results, which is like an extract of the financial result. But that is optional. However, if they are going to publish that advertisement, that should also contain the link where full financial results is available along with the QR code. So they have to ensure that the QR code and the web link is published in whatever advertisement which is there as far as financial results is concerned.
I mean, basically, sorry, go ahead, sir. Raj, go ahead.
No, sir. So basically, it is saying that they should understand this company and the professionals who are under obligation for the compliance of this law. They should understand the spirit of the regulation, and they should not see that this is the ease that we have provided to the companies, because we have received many suggestions on this. So they should understand the spirit of the regulation, and they should try to comply with that. And they should not try to go around the regulation and try to give their own interpretation, come out with their own petition, and try to circumvent this thing.
Well said, well said. I mean, basically, what I was also coming to is there was a clamor among the corporates that there is a tremendous amount of cost involved in this advertisement. Therefore, a simplified format has been given, which you do
Correct,
it
sir.
and give a link so that the link will provide all the details. In the event the company is wanting to, then do it fully the way you are currently doing it, in the format in which it's prescribed. That's it.
Yes, sir.
Sir, as regard to the secretarial compliance officer shall be an officer who shall all-time employment, right? For the listed entities. Does it mean that a person who is on the contract of the employment and not on the payroll of the company with a listed company, say for 2-year contract, 3 years contract, can it be a compliance officer? And further, Now, is it possible that a compliance officer of holding company be appointed as a compliance officer for KMP in a subsidiary company? Will this scenario will continue? Rajan sir. Rajan sir.
I think, sir, going by the spirit of the regulation again, I think when I say it is a full-time employee, I don't think a contract employee is a full-time employee. If a full-time employee, I think there is a certain definition is there that you are a full-time employee. And second thing, when it is going to the subsidiary, then the person is the person is not a full-time employee of that subsidiary. So according to us as a regulator, I will say they can only serve as a compliance officer of the company listed company, not to the subsidiary.
Fact, in short, the applicability of appointment of a company secretary for its subsidiary will be applicable only if it's an unlisted, both are unlisted in the segment. Then there should not be a problem. If they are in the listed segment, then the parent company, they have to be there only. That's it.
Correct.
Yes, sir. Then they should be on the payroll of the listed entity. So only then I think it will be deemed to be in full-time employment of the listed entity. Because the regulation says that the compliance officer shall be an officer who is in the full-time employment of the listed entity, not more than one level below the board of directors, and shall be designated as a KMP.
Now, some companies, Rajendran and Raj, what happens is he is a full-time employee of the holding listed company, but 203 of Companies Act allows KMP to be a subsidiary in one subsidiary, and ICSI also says that one and not one, and therefore, if he is in full-time employment of a listed entity and also appointed as a company secretary or a subsidiary, is a question probably.
Subsidiary, if it's unlisted, there will be no issue, sir. But if subsidiary is listed, I think there will be an issue. I think that will not be
correct.
Excellent submission. Yes, if the subsidiary is unlisted, then it may not apply. But then if it's unlisted, then they have to have two separate people.
One another practice as regard to the appointment under a contract basis, sir. Generally, initial stages for 2-3 years, corporates appoint a person on contract basis, though it is full time. So more clarity, I think, on this word is required.
So employment word is not defined in SEBI. Employment words would emanate from labor codes, wage code bills.
Yes.
So one may look at it, but what is expected is he should be whole time in employment of the company, and therefore a contract professional how will he be able to discharge his role? Because see, one thing we have to remember that he should not have a conflict of interest. If it's a contract, then and if he's carrying out some other activities, it's not allowed anyway. It's not allowed anyway. So therefore, if our audience will have to be, our members will have to be careful that he has to fall under employment definition of the wage code bill.
Okay. Makarand is an employee.
Yeah.
His contractual employment, in the sense his period is for 5 years or whatever it is, they appoint him. He is in fact DIR 12, everything has been filed. So he is in full-time employment only, but the appointment is contractual. He is in full-time employment, but appointment is contractual.
Yes,
the situation will be there. There will be situation like that, and there are quite a few government companies also doing it.
Yeah. If he's full-time employment, then that should be compliance.
Yeah, but on contractual basis.
But on contractual
for 5-year
basis.
period, 3-year period, whatever it is.
There was one NCLAT judgment on this, and they clearly said that the intention of whole time is to avoid any conflict. So he should not have any conflicting position. That one has to be careful, and employment expectation of wage code bill. Those framework follow. Yeah.
Okay, sir. And further questions regarding regulations 2K. 2 sub-regulation K has been omitted. What does it mean, and what is the reasoning behind omission of this definition of half year? Does it mean that the disclosure of related party transaction under regulation 23/9 is not required in future, Rajan sir?
No, sir. I think they have misunderstood it. So the definition which was there in LODR for half year, it's that it is either April 1 or October 1. So this is correct for a company which is following April to March financial year, but we have some companies which have a different financial year, basically MNCs which have their parent company
January
out.
to December.
Yeah, so in order to give flexibility, because for them half year could mean other than April and October also. So it could be July 1 or January 1 also. So that is the reason the committee recommended that we will delete the definition of half year, and half year is understood to be whatever is your
Financial year, half of that.
correct, sir. So that is the reason, and then requirement to file an related party transaction will obviously be there. The only difference would be now it will be part of integrated filing financial.
Absolutely.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you. The amendment state that the related party transaction of a subsidiary companies require approval of audit company of holding company, audit committee of holding company. Is there any cutoff date, or please give some insight for taking this approval?
Apar, would you like to take this up?
So the requirement for approval is always prior approval. Even in case of a transaction by a subsidiary, the requirement is that it should be approved by the audit committee of the listed company prior to entering into the transaction. So that prior approval stays, but in case that prior approval cannot be done in case of genuine circumstances, now we have brought in the ratification requirement. So that also is subjected to certain limits as specified in the regulations. In addition to that, the time limit which has been given is either 3 months or in the immediate next audit committee meeting, whichever is earlier. So the post-facto ratification also has to be done within these timelines.
Raj, you want to say something?
Anybody can add if required.
Sorry, I think I agree with what Apar has said. So it is the approval has to be taken, prior approval has to be taken. So there is no confusion. I don't think there is any confusion in this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, sir. Now the question is reclassification. Sir, can you amendment said that the reclassification of promoter to be applied within 5 days to the stock exchange? Is it working days or 5 working days or normal working days? And can you elaborate this issue again?
Dhaval?
This amendment.
Right. So currently it has been stated as 5 days. So 5 days has been calendar days. There's no working day which has been given. So we can take that as in calendar days.
And sir, can you explain about the reclassification in case of open offer?
So currently, if we see the amended regulation, there's some relaxation which is given for the open offer. I think going by that, the process for the reclassification which is stated, wherein the whole process, the flowchart is to be taken, I think that has been relaxed for that.
So basically, if it's an open offer, the intention of the promoter to get reclassified has to be disclosed in the letter of offer. And once the open offer is completed, then they have to make a disclosure within 24 hours that the outgoing promoter has been reclassified and the acquirer is being classified as the promoter of the company. So earlier, after the open offer got over, they had to make an application to the exchanges, await exchange approval. So all those things have been done away, subject to the condition that you disclose the fact in the letter of offer. The promoter should not be in control of the company, and then you make a disclosure within 24 hours of completion of open offer. This is the change.
Okay, great. Next question is, reporting of fraud in an unlisted subsidiary is a requirement as per regulation 30 part A, para A, without application of materiality test. Does this reporting apply only to a material subsidiary or every subsidiary?
So it is applicable to all subsidiaries, but there's a caveat in that it should be in relation to the listed entity. So either the subsidiary is involved along with the listed entity, or there has been impact on the listed entity itself due to that fraud or default. Only then it is required to be disclosed.
Actually, a disclosure.
Okay.
Basically, if it is the listed entity, the transaction in which also listed entity is getting affected, then it should be disclosed.
Next question is whether existing secretarial auditor needs to be changed if he has holding, he has, or who are in the holding in the office for a period more than 10 years in past.
No.
So
No,
it should be counted from 1st April 2025, right?
The provisions are very clear.
That Makarand has also very clearly said. I think the appointment, when it comes through, effective from 1st April 2025, that appointment will be coming under this purview of the new regulation. That's it.
Okay, sir. Thank you. It is clear now. In case of in the regulation 30, with respect to the maintenance of entries of litigation other than tax litigation in SGD. So please elaborate in this newly introduced new requirement further why the specifically tax litigation has been excluded.
Yes. So in case of litigations where claims are made against the listed entity, additional time may be required to assess the claims and to determine whether the claims are material for disclosure. Hence, the committee had recommended an additional time period of up to 72 hours for disclosure of such litigations after assessing whether it's material or not. However, there were some concerns which we received during public consultation also, and which were deliberated subsequently, that during this period of 72 hours, there may be some leakage of information from the company. So to avoid that, this additional timeline would be available only if the information is maintained in the structured digital database SDD in terms of the PIT regulations, SEBI PIT regulations, to ensure that there's a proper tracking of the UPSI pertaining to such litigation. With respect to tax litigations, there was some confusion in the market, though whether they are covered in the para A or whether it should be disclosed based on materiality. So tax litigations are basically in the nature of statutory dues, and since the amount payable is assessed by the tax authorities, so it's better that the value of that tax claim should be taken for determining materiality of the tax litigation, and hence that have been kept out of this 72 hours timeline, and they should be disclosed within 24 hours based on materiality calculated based on the value of the transaction. However, the updates on these existing tax litigations are required to be disclosed on a quarterly basis. SEBI will also come up with some clarification on this. This was also recommended by the expert committee that a clarification may be added in the circular that the tax litigations are to be disclosed based on application of materiality under para B. So that clarity will be coming in soon.
One more point, Rajesh, I wanted to highlight here that there is one more consultation paper which is already was open for public comment for some time, where deemed material and UPSI definition is getting aligned. And therefore, there also they have referred that this particular claims part, whenever there is a materiality, it will be probably deemed to be, or it will be falling under illustrative list of UPSI. From that context also, this SDD requirement, which is coming in, is also coming from that context.
Okay. Next question is, as per the recent amendment in Schedule 2, say that listed entities ranking from 1001 to 2000, as per the list prepared by the recognized stock exchanges, they shall endeavor to have at least one women independent director. The word used endeavor, is it recommendatory or mandatory?
It is recommendatory.
Okay, sir.
It's falling under discretionary category.
Yeah.
Okay. And coming
and
to the next...
endeavor. Otherwise, it would have been shall.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. What should be the timeline for quarterly compliances for the period ending on December 24?
Sorry, sir, can you repeat?
What should be the timeline for quarterly compliances report of December 24 quarter?
Okay.
Sir, I think we are going to come out with a circular soon. So in that, I think we'll give the timeline. So I think we should wait for the circular to come up.
Okay, sir.
So,
Sorry.
Yes, sir. Committee report, they had given a timeline of 30 days for integrated filing governance and 45 days for integrated filing financial. So that is already there. So it is just that SEBI has to come out with a circular.
Sir, next question. Now coming to the very few, one or two questions are more there. As per new insertion of clause 46/2 ZA, employee benefit scheme disclosure are required to be on the website of the company. That what that disclosure are there, that is not disclosed, and comply this by link of the stock exchange website may be given wherein the document are to be available. However, no scheme relating to disclosure are made on public on the stock exchange website. Only the principal questions and applications is filed with the exchange. How to give the link of exchange website disclosures? I think question is to
NSE.
So maybe the first part of it, what has to be disclosed as part of the employee scheme benefit document,
Yes.
I think that will be made in the circular. That will be mentioned what are the details that should be there when they disclose a ESOP document or any other employee benefit document. The part on disclosure of exchange link, I think Dhaval can take this question.
Correct. So, in case the companies are maybe disclosing that policy, which I don't think so, anyone is disclosing their policy. So, the question which has been asked that whether the public document which is there on the exchange website can be directly placed on the company's website. But there's a issue here with the question itself, because I'm not sure whether the companies are filing their policy with the stock exchange, which has been disseminated on the stock exchange website. So I think this question is, I think, not valid on that part. So the companies will have to stick to the compliance of registration for 46(2), because the schemes are not been filed with the stock exchanges and basically disseminated on the exchanges website. Maybe filed with the exchanges, but these are not disseminated on the exchanges website.
Rajesh, probably the question also wants to say that because initial consultation was that entire scheme related documents should be available on the website, and then there were some comments which we received from public where they said that there are confidentiality issues with respect to those aspects, and then the final version which has come is that if there are such confidential information, then that can be that need not be disclosed, and therefore we'll have to wait for more guidance on this. But it's not about stock exchange; it's submitted only for approval, not for dissemination. It's only on the website of the company, and there also it's not complete scheme. Wherever the confidential information, we need not give that part of it. Redacted is the word if you read it very carefully.
Yes.
Okay, sir. The last question is just removal of doubt. Pursuant to amendment of Regulation 13/3 and Regulation 27/2, the statutory timeline for compliance was 21 days from the end of the quarter. However, in the amendment, the same has been mentioned that to submit within a timeline as may be specified by board from time to time. So it is stated that we should be notified from time to time, or is it to be on 21 days?
It will be part of the integrated filing, sir. So 13.3 and 27 will be part of integrated filing governance, for which the committee has suggested a timeline of 30 days. So if it's part of the integrated filing, whatever is the timeline applicable for that integrated filing, that will be applicable.
Okay. Now, almost I think all questions and feedbacks
I
received.
just had only one thing to say. I mean, I want to personally thank each one of you. The total number of members currently hearing us out is around 3,600. I think it's a fairly good number.
Good.
I was expecting much more though, but I think it is not caught on to them. But anyway, we will have possibly one more session later after a couple of months. Let the thing settle down and let's see how people get assimilated, and then we can see possibly one more session where we can take a wholesome view of whatever has been explained right now. Thank you once again. Over to you, Rajesh, and whatever you need to comply with.
Yes. Any concluding remarks from any of the panelists? Otherwise, we will conclude with a formal vote of thanks. Rajan sir.
So thank you so much. That is what we would like to say to ICSI and to all the panel members. A special
We
thanks
thank
to
you, sir. We thank you. We thank you. I think we are more indebted to you than you to us, sir.
I mean, the question is
Uh,
also very
thank,
specific, and whatever were the maybe some clarity that was required. So that has also been brought to the regulators' notice. Maybe we'll take this into account whenever we come out with the
Absolutely.
FAQ, come out with some
Absolutely.
clarification.
Absolutely.
And thank you to everyone.
Thank you to ICCI and thank you especially to Mr. Narasimhan, sir. Sir, I never thought that there will be so many questions after coming out to ease of doing business, giving some after amendment of regulations. We never thought that
Hey,
market will also have so much of doubt.
you're
But
talking to
actually,
professionals.
yeah,
You're
reading
talking
this,
to
actually,
company
there are
secretaries.
practical difficulties are there, which as a regulator we also realize. So certainly, I think certain things ICSI will also come out with some guidelines. And as far as possible, SEBI would also like to, in case of difficulty or practical issues, SEBI will also come out with some clarity.
I
So
think most
thank you
importantly,
for giving this
for the benefit of all,
opportunity.
I just thought I'll pitch in on this. I'll say, now the company secretaries are so used to reading between the lines. Therefore, they'll find out, they'll find out, they'll find out what is there and then consume and, and presume that that is there and then they put the question to us. Anyway, good enough. Lot of questions were received. And I think each one of you took a painstaking time to reply to each one of them. I think we should have a very happy company secretary lot who have been listening to us. Okay.
Correct, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Correct.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
And thank you, Makaran sir, for giving all the cautions along with the regulatory requirements, so that people should not read in between the lines. They should comply with the requirements as per the spirit of the regulations. Thanks, and finally, thank you to all of us, to all of you, for giving this platform. So it was really insightful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to all.
Makaran. Thank you, Makaran.
Thank you to all,
Rajesh.
and
thank you, everybody.
thank you, sir. Thank you.
everybody.
I also
Thank you,
to
Rajendra.
technical. I formally thank you to all the panelists
Thanks,
for very
Bhanu and
insightful
team.
knowledge.
Thanks, Bhanu and team at
Yes,
ICSI
and
for
attendees
getting this going.
and all the attendees. Thank you for their supports and courage and feedback. Thank you, speakers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, President.
Thank you.
Happy New Year to all.
Happy New Year to all of you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to all of you.
Happy New Year, sir. Okay.
Bye. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Support team, please close karo. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year. Bye. Take care.
Recording stopped.